evening, everybody, and welcome to Baumhauer's Victory Grill, the Nick Saban Show, presented by Alpha Insurance. For auto, home, and life insurance, call Alpha. If you'd like to join the conversation, feel free to do so. It's toll-free at 877-202-BAMA. 877-202-BAMA. That is the Academy Sports and Outdoors Hotline. Our special media guest tonight is Alex Scarborough from ESPN.com. He used to write for the Tuscaloosa News. Then he was the Bama beat writer for ESPN.com. Then he got promoted to covering the entire SEC, all sorts of national assignments, and we've enjoyed reading your work. How different is it working on a national platform versus the local platform, or do you basically write the next article the same way?
It's a little bit of both. In some ways, the job has remained the same. Alabama's been pretty relevant,
sure.
As you know, and trying to stick around here and see what's going on, checking in as much as I can. But the thing I enjoy the most about the way the job has changed is being able to look at the big picture of the game and the big picture of the sport and just how much it's changed in the last 5-10 years even, and being able to take note of that, and it's been pretty remarkable.
Has the atmosphere changed at other schools to the degree that it has changed here? Obviously, Bama prides itself in being on the cutting edge of the latest technology, all sorts of stuff. Do other schools take that same approach, or maybe they take it but can't achieve it? What do you see?
I think there's a little bit of take it but can't achieve it that goes on at some places, but a lot of it has been follow the lead. I think there's a lot of, imitation is the most sincerest form of flattery, and you see that a lot with the facilities, the way they take care of the mental health of players. A lot of that started right here and started with Nick Saban, and you got to give him a lot of credit for the way the sport and the way programs have really changed in terms of the way they operate day to day.
How much writing do you do now? You know, the old days, guys used to write a column or two for the daily run of the printing press. Now it's electronic, and you're a content provider with something that can happen instantaneously. How much writing do you do now vis-a-vis the old days?
It varies is the answer, and it varies in a week where maybe there's an injury, maybe there's not an injury, maybe
right.
I've got a big piece I've been working on for a while. So there are days where I'll write 3 or 4 quick stories, and days where there's a week where I'm writing a 2,000-3,000 word piece that takes quite a bit of time, and it's a little bit pulling up and down on the throttle sometimes.
From your eyes, what are the biggest stories in college sports nowadays?
I think the biggest one in college football remains the way offenses have changed, and the RPO game and the no-huddle game, and the way teams have either been on the forefront of that or really embraced it and taken it on. And you've seen here at Alabama, maybe they were a little slow to the draw in terms of getting there, effective but different styles. But once they went all in, they went all in an effective way, and it's been pretty remarkable to see.
Your comments are very enlightening, but don't think the applause is for you. Coach Nick Saban making his way into Baumhauer's now. Our special media guest, Alex Scarborough from ESPN.com, former writer for the Tuscaloosa News, now being read on the national stage. And, of course, Coach Nick Saban getting settled in beside us to say hello. How are you, sir? Good to see you.
Doing well. How are you?
I am well. We're just sitting here talking about the changes in college football. It's something you've talked about over the years, the way this game is not the same game as your father's college football, is it?
Well, I don't think it is. But I think a lot of the changes are actually, for the better. I think that the game's more exciting now.
Yeah.
And I actually think that because the game is more spread out, there's more space plays, there's more excitement. But I also think that that's a little bit of an equalizer, for a lot of teams, because it used to be, you had to be great at all positions. You had to have a really good offensive line. You had big, strong people on defense.
Sure.
And if you couldn't win on the line of scrimmage, you really couldn't win.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of teams that are very, very successful now that really don't overpower people. They really kind of out-finesse them, and that's where the game has gone.
Coach, you know Alex Scarborough, of course, from ESPN.com, and he's got the first question for you.
I know we're just talking cutting edge and the way the game has changed, but you guys are going to honor the 2009 team this weekend, and I'm curious your memories of that team and what sort of stands out that made that group so special to be able to accomplish what they did.
Well, I don't want to say I have a favorite team because I think that would be a little bit disrespectful to some of the other great players and great teams that we've had in the past. But this team I just love because, first of all, the 2009 team, those guys all came here when we weren't any good. A lot of guys come here now because we're good. Sure. And we can do a lot maybe to enhance their career or help them or whatever. But, Julio Jones, Dante Hightower, all those guys, Rolando McClain, they all came here, Marcel Darius, Mark Barron, they all came here. We were 6-6. They didn't know if we were ever going to be any good or not, but they, sort of believed and trusted in, the program, what we were going to try to do here, what we're going to try to build here. And that team actually was the foundation and the building block, of all those teams. And, you talk about a team that, really played to a high standard all the time. They were the only team that we've ever had here that went undefeated.
Right. And
won a championship. All the other championship teams lost a game somewhere along the way. And, these guys were just a special group. And, one of my best memories, you always talk about team, you always talk about togetherness, you always talk about guys not having a personal agenda. And I told this story once before, when we were going to play Texas in the Rose Bowl in those days, the players could make anywhere from $700 to $1,000 by flying from their hometown, wherever they were from, to the bowl site, back to their hometown. Because the NCAA allowed you to give them so much money, they could buy tickets for less than that, so they would actually end up making money. Well, Texas had all but 4 players on their team could fly to Dallas, Houston, or San Antonio.
Right.
All right, so they had all direct flights. We have guys from every small town in Alabama, South Georgia, Tennessee, all over the place.
Someone to L.A. didn't have a nonstop flight.
No, nobody had one. Nobody had one. We were sending guys through Minneapolis, Minnesota, Cleveland, Ohio. And I'm saying to myself, we'll never get everybody there in time to have practice.
Yeah.
And so I actually called the NCAA and I said, look, the average player on our team would make $700. How about we charter a plane, charge them each whatever it costs for a seat, and give them the difference of what you would give them, just so the players won't lose out. And they said, absolutely not. There's no way we can do that, whatever. So I had a meeting with the leadership group, and I said, guys, I don't know if we can win this game because I don't know if everybody's going to make it to the game, the way we have to travel. And, they said, well, I said, I'm not going to tell the players we have to take a charter, but I'd like for them to take a vote because I'm not going to take money out of their pocket. So we went in and voted, and the team voted 125 to nothing to take a charter.
There you go.
Rolando McClain made an interesting statement after that. He said, you guys will not remember 3 months from now what you do with the $700 you make on this trip, but you're going to remember for the rest of your life what happens in this game.
Exactly right.
So let's go win the game. And that's why they all voted the way they did. But, that's the kind of team we had. They were really a great team, great togetherness, really had, high standards and goals and aspirations for what they wanted to achieve, and they were really hungry, and they were willing to make sacrifices to get it done.
And, of course, Bama did get it done, winning the national championship. Coach, we've got Pee Wee on the phone from Grand Bay, Alabama, and he's our first caller of the night, brought to you by Alabama 811. Always contact 811 before you dig to know what's below. Call 811 or visit al811.com. Pee Wee, how are things in Grand Bay tonight?
Very nice outside, nice and cool.
Good, good. What's going on? What do you want to talk about? Which offensive lineman do you want to discuss tonight?
Well, actually, I'd like to talk about Kendall Randolph, if we could.
Sure.
I was just wondering, what his progression has been through this year, and when he comes into play, there should be, some sort of advantage, I'm thinking, when he wears the tight end number versus his offensive line number, and I'm just wondering what that would be.
Yeah, well, Kendall has, sort of developed a role for himself on the team. We don't have a big physical tight end who can really block in the C area on our team. We have some talented guys, but, they're not great big guys. They're not overpowering. And a lot of times when you play 3 wideouts and a tight end, you're playing against nickel. So the guy that plays over the tight end is really a big defensive end. So not an easy guy to block in a lot of cases. So we took Kendall early in the season and said, look, you're still going to be a guard, but we want to teach you how to play tight end. And he embraced the role, and he's really done a nice job of it. And we actually did it because Kendall was hurt last week. We actually trained Chris Owens to do it, and he did it in last week's game. So now we have basically 2 guys that can do it, and I think that's really an asset, for our team. And Kendall has done an amazingly good job at embracing this role on our team, and he's performed really well for us.
Since we're talking about some of the big ones, how about Alex Leatherwood? Got the SEC's Offensive Lineman of the Week. He had himself a great ball game.
He sure did. He's played well for us all year long. I think he's, feeling more and more at home, at left tackle, which is what he always wanted to play, even though he spent a season at guard last year. And, really did a nice job in the last game. But our whole offensive line really played well. I mean, this is the best that they've played in moving the line of scrimmage and getting movement up front, especially on direct runs. And most of our runs were straight downhill. The ones that were successful, 10, 12, 15-yard runs, were just running right at them, and it was because those guys were covering them up and getting movement and played really well together as a group.
Yeah, another 140-yard rushing day against Tennessee. Coach, to your right, we have a visitor here at Baumhauer's with a question. Good evening, sir.
How are you, Coach? Ray Hornsby, Anniston, Alabama.
Hey, Ray.
My question is, going back to the theme of changes in football, and you've seen a lot because you've been coaching for a long, long time. Last week I had actually Monday in Mobile, I got to see Dr. Kevin Elko. He spoke a lot of you and spoke a lot of Alabama. But it made me think, when I was a kid, there was nothing like him involved in sports, which made me come back to the question to you. What do you like most about being a coach? Is it X's and O's? Is it the mental part of the game, or is it the part like Kevin Elko brings, or what is it exactly that is your favorite part?
Well, I think it would be probably threefold in no particular order. First of all, I like the technical part of the game. Being a secondary guy, I mean, you have to understand you got 5 or 6 defensive backs out there. You got patterns. You want to pattern match. You got receiver locations. You're trying to figure out who does what when, how you can get your players to play better, how you can pressure the quarterback. So I do like the strategic part of the game, the game planning. I really like coaching and teaching the players. I enjoy going to the meetings every day. A lot of head coaches don't go to individual meetings. I always go to individual meetings every day and sort of coach the players and coach them on the field, all the time, because I enjoy the teaching part, of what I do. And then probably the third part is, and probably the thing I enjoy most is when you're a part of a team, you really have some special relationships with a lot of people on your team. Players, coaches, everybody in the organization. And it makes you feel like you're a part of a big old family. And, there's a lot of togetherness, and you have a lot of good things that happen in your family, and sometimes you have some things that you have to overcome, and sometimes you have some tremendous disappointments and lessons that have to be learned and taught. But you never do any of those things without respecting everybody in the organization. So I think those relationships in the organization is probably, and with players, the thing that I enjoy most. And, something that never goes away, when you have a relationship with a guy like that, when they come back and see you, like Reuben Foster, I hadn't seen Reuben Foster for 3 years. When he comes back and sees me, it's like he never left. I mean, it's like it was yesterday he was playing and I was talking to him about something he did or didn't do. And it's that way with every guy. Rolando McClain came to see me the other day, and it's like I really had to tell myself, he's not playing for you anymore. I mean, but that's how the relationships kind of are. And because you have those, and I guess it's respect, that you have for them and what they did, it just never seems to change. And that's pretty special.
Again, Coach Saban joining us. Alex Scarborough from ESPN.com, our media guest. Alex, jump right in, sir.
I had a question for you. Obviously, your background is in secondary, but you grew up in high school as a prolific quarterback. And I wondered how much you think that helped you in terms of playing defensive back. And when you recruit a guy, do you light up when you know that they have that in their background as well?
Well, I don't know. You use the word prolific, pretty loosely.
Won a bunch of ball games.
Yeah, but when I played, I mean, we had the T formation, and if we got two-back slot, that was like 2 minutes.
Right.
I mean, everything was really kind of tight, and we had some great players, that I played with, but did play quarterback for a year in college. But I do think when you play quarterback and you play the position, you sort of learn, or at least I did, because I had some really good coaches. You kind of learn to look at the game big picture wise. So like when I played in high school, I knew what every guy on every play was supposed to do, who was pulling, who they were supposed to block versus what front we were in, what coverage they were playing. It wasn't that complicated in those days, but it just, some people look at the game like, what am I supposed to do? Mm-hmm. And they don't ever get the big picture. And I think it makes you, or at least it helped me become a conceptual thinker, in terms of concepts rather than trying to just memorize assignments. And it also helps you understand why it's important to do something a certain way when you see the big picture. So I think that really helped me a lot as a coach. Not necessarily as a defensive back coach. I didn't really, I played defensive back for 3 years, and that's where I learned from some really good coaches. Don James, my head coach, was a defensive back guy, so he had good background. And Coach Bybent played for him at Florida State, and he was a defensive back. So I really got a good start out with some really good mentors in terms of DB, fundamentals.
So you were fundamentally sound. Did you have closing speed too?
Well, I don't know about that. But
I just figured I would ask. Wasn't there to see it myself.
Well, I don't think anybody was as fast then as they are now. I mean, I certainly am not.
So what about Perry Marbury?
I mean, there is a lot of fast guys that play the game,
Goodness,
right now, but I think that's what the game has become. It's become a little bit more. The more you spread it out, the more speed, quickness, burst, acceleration, being explosive, sudden. Those things become greater assets than if you're playing the game in a small space.
Coach, we got a question here from the Nick Saban Show blog on AL.com. It comes from Glenn in Clarksville, Tennessee. He says, hey, Coach, Ali Cajo has been impressive on special teams as well as the limited action at linebacker and fullback. Can you comment on his play thus far? Thank you, and roll Tide.
Well, Ali is probably, I would say, the most valuable guy on our team when it comes to special teams. Mm-hmm. He is just a phenomenal special teams player. He's a very instinctive guy. He can run fast. He's really, really tough. And I think the big thing that we've tried to continue to get him to progress on as a linebacker is assignments. Right. Of being able to understand the concept of the defense, where he fits in the defense, how to fit the various plays. I think a lot of players, and I'm not saying this is true with Ali Cajo, but a lot of the linebackers that we recruit that are really, really good high school players, they can run, they're explosive, they're physical, they're tough, but they really kind of grow up and they look at the ball.
Okay.
All right, and in this day and age of football, so if the ball goes sideways, they're going sideways, and they're tracking people down, and they can run, and they can hit, and they're good tacklers. But the way football is now, there's so much eye candy, I call it, in terms of, the guy's running a rocket sweep this way, the guard and tackle are pulling that way, the running back's going this way, and the quarterback's taking the ball over here and running it. All right, so if you don't have disciplined eye control to key what you're supposed to key, you're never going to be in the right place as a linebacker.
Sure.
All right, which is one of the most difficult things for, like the young guys that we're playing with. And because I went through this last week, we don't have anybody on our team that's ever played before that sets a good example every day of how to do these things. It's not like you can say, well, just watch the guy in front of you.
Yeah, I remember you said that last week.
Yeah. Well, we don't have any of that. Yeah. All right, so they have to learn this, and then you have to repeat it. And Okay, let's run that play again. And this is what you got to look at. And this is how you need to react. And this is where you're supposed to fit. Because you have to understand, where is the other guys fitting? Like if we have a safety coming down to the right, all right, the linebackers can play slow to the right. They got to play fast to the left. Does that make sense?
Sure.
All right, I'm trying to say this in layman's terms. Well, when you don't know where the safety's coming down, it makes it hard to be right.
Exactly. It's a crapshoot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So-
hear you. I understand now.
We're working on it.
I got you.
We're working on you too, Eli. Just so.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Let's go up to Florence, Alabama. Rowdy is on the phone. Rowdy, welcome in. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Eli. I hope you and the coach both are doing well.
Yes, sir. What's your question for the coach tonight?
Coach Saban, I have a comment, and it's going to lead into a question, if I may, sir.
Okay.
Now that Tua's been hurt, social or not social media, but sports media and radio talk shows are saying that Alabama is a little bit down, and they're maybe not a number one contender for the national championship. Well, I believe, sir, that we'll take on Arkansas and beat them for two reasons. One, Alabama's a great football team without Tua, and also everyone knows that Arkansas is a little bit down. The program is. But once we take care of business with Arkansas, and then we have a week of rest, and then when we beat LSU, whether it's by 1 or 100 or maybe 10 points, I would say then that the world or the national college spectrum will have to recognize us then as the number one contender. What do you say to that, Coach?
Well, Rowdy, I'm kind of going day to day here. All right, play to play, quarter to quarter. So you've kind of looked at this whole thing a little bit further ahead than me, because I don't mean to be disrespectful, but every game is an important game, and I really believe that when you see South Carolina beat Georgia, you see Illinois beat Wisconsin. I don't really think that you can ever take anything for granted, as a player or a coach. I think that the hardest thing with these players right now is to get them to play to a standard. I always say, do you understand what your capability gap is? Do you know what your capability gap is? Your capability gap is what you're doing now versus what you're capable of doing. Okay, if there's a gap in there, you're leaving money on the table. All right, so you're not doing things as well as you're capable of doing it. I don't care if it's in school. I don't care if it's as a person. I don't care if it's as a football player. All right, but the hardest thing to get these guys to understand is they're not really competing just against their opponent. They're not really just competing against the scoreboard just to win the game. They're really competing against themselves because they're ultimately going to be judged and measured by how they perform to the standard that they perform to on a consistent basis. All right, but yet so many people are affected by what's the score, who we playing, how important the game is, as to how they approach the game and how they go about getting ready to play the game. But yet the standard should be, I should be trying to play as well as I can play because that's what I'm going to be measured by. But that's the hard thing to get people to sort of understand. But if you just do a little self-assessment, all right, what's the capability gap? How am I doing relative to what am I capable of doing? All right, and that will tell you exactly where you're at, all right, in terms of who you are as a person, and are you reaching your full potential, and are you really trying to be the best that you can be? I said this the other day, I asked our players one week, why did you come to Alabama? And they gave me all kind of answers. All right, but then I told them, I said, this is why you came. You came to be the best player you could be, and you came to win a championship. That's why you came here. But there's a responsibility that goes with that. And that responsibility is every one of you have to do more, not less. you think you're here and you think we're good and you can do less, you need to do more. You need to be more disciplined. You be more committed, more intensity, more toughness, more, doing everything you can do to be the best version of yourself you can be. So it's not about doing less. It's about doing more. And that's why you came here. Because there's a lot of other players that went other places because they thought it would be easier. They thought they'd play faster. There wouldn't be as much competition. And every now and then they'd win a big game, and every now and then they might even upset somebody. But they'll never have a chance to win a championship. But you do. All right? But that requires more. There's a responsibility that goes with that. So, somebody said, I got asked the question just a little bit ago, do you like the motivation part of it? It's the most challenging part of it. All right? Because it's not human nature to want to be the best you can be. It's human nature to do what you have to do to get by and be comfortable. And I tell the players that all the time. I said, you guys think you're working all the time so you can sit on the lawn chair and look out at the ocean. That commercial,
Sure.
What is that, Corona?
Yeah.
Where the girl's sitting here and the guy's sitting here and they're looking at and the birds chirping. That's what y'all working for? So you can be comfortable?
But you're right, breaking human nature has got to be the toughest assignment.
It is. We're working on it every day.
There you go. Freshman from West Monroe, Louisiana, the only passing touchdown of the ball game last week, as he hooked up with Miller Forrestall, the junior tight end from Cartersville, Georgia. Glad you're with us. Don't forget, Alabama and Arkansas coming up on Saturday. We'll have coverage for you starting at 3. The kickoff is at 6 o'clock at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Alex Scarborough from ESPN.com is with us. I'll tell you, the colorful lights last week, all of that was spectacular to see. The game lights, though, what I call the white lights, I don't know what the correct term is, but the vividness of the stadium, of the play, is something that really stood out to me.
Oh, 100%. Not that the stadium lacked anything before, but it almost brought it to life even more. And I know the players talking this week just loved it. It brought them up a little bit during the pregame. Incredible atmosphere.
In the previous years, you had those ribbon advertisements, that ribbon that goes around the upper deck. And if there was a green advertisement, there'd be a green tint to the field. If there was yellow or blue or whatever, you didn't get that last week. The brightness of the LEDs and the way they were aimed and so on. I didn't know how much of a change it was going to make. It was breathtaking in that everything was so clear to see.
Oh yeah, it's like Bryant-Denny got an HD, 4K, whatever you want to call it now.
Whatever it is. Right now here at the restaurant, part of our regular weekly, when we come back, the coach is always spending time with the fans. He is out taking pictures and so on, and we've got him now making his way back up to the stage after another picture or two. A lot of folks from the Knicks Kids Foundation always make their way to the restaurant to join us on the program. And Coach, I don't need to tell you what time of the year it is. It's almost Halloween time, and we know what happens on Halloween. At least I'm gathering that's what happens, because we've got birthday cakes starting to make their way up to the stage right here.
Wow.
And you're not going to be with us next week. You'll be on the phone with us on the bye week for a short visit, but we've got folks who have been baking birthday cakes for you.
Well, I certainly appreciate that. I guess we should be really thankful that we continue to have birthdays.
It beats the heck out of the alternative.
Yeah, I hear you.
It sure does.
Not that I'm interested in getting much older, but
hey, age. You're a young man. I mean, age, people always laugh, say, "Well, age is only a number." So, but you do. I mean, you're out there, you're running, you're doing. It is just a number.
Well, it is, and I feel great, and I enjoy what I'm doing, and it's just. I don't feel any different than I did,
Exactly.
20 years ago. So try to take care of yourself the best you can and be thankful for what you got.
Well,
and,
Coach, here comes a beautiful cake.
I'm certainly thankful for these ladies and what they're doing.
Yeah.
Wow, what a beautiful cake. How about that cake?
It's crimson and white. It's got it's a football field with a big crimson and white football in the middle.
It says there's no rat poison on
Is
this.
that what it says? That's great. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
That's great. And that cake is big enough to serve just about everybody here in the restaurant.
Yeah, and I think we should give everybody some.
Yeah.
Let's give everybody some.
We'll start cutting it up. Alex, why don't you? Well, let's take a question right here to your right, Coach, while you're reading the birthday card. We have a visitor here at the restaurant. Hello, ma'am. Good evening.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Coach. I'm Anna Faye Shaw. You and I have a special bond because you have my birthday.
Oh, is that right?
One week from today, you are going to be 68.
That's right.
And I'm going to be 80. And I'm still working. So 12 years from now, you're going to be 80. And I'm going to be 92. And I plan to be here. And I want you to still be the coach at Alabama.
Okay.
There you go.
I got it.
And,
You know,
and
you look. I want to say something to you. You look so good for your age. I thought you were going to say you were 68, just like me.
No. I was 12 when you were born. So, in addition to still being here at 80, I want you to be hoisting another national championship trophy.
Okay. We'll keep working on it.
There you go. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. I really appreciate it. And happy birthday to you.
Alex Scarborough, back to you, sir.
You talk about your birthday coming up, and a lot of coaches, as they get older, they shift into like a CEO type role. What draws you to continuing to work with the guys in practice on more hands-on role? And do you think it keeps you young, for lack of a better phrase?
Well, I don't know about that. I just know that I think if they would have had attention deficit when I was young, maybe I have it. I don't know. But they didn't diagnose stuff like that
That didn't
back then.
exist in those days.
So, you know, you just never know. But I really don't like not having something to do, not being busy. And I think if you sort of take a CEO role, you sort of lose a little bit of touch with the players. You're not with them every day. You're not on the field. You're not coaching them. You're not seeing how they react and respond to things. I mean, I just wouldn't have the same feel, you know, for the team and a lot of the individual players and what you can do to help them, you know, in a lot of ways. But I would be absolutely bored to death if I wasn't involved. I can't really stand around on the field and just watch. You know, that's kind of boring to me. And I know Coach Bryant was a great coach, and you know, he stood up in his tower and all that, but I'd have a hard time with that unless I had a bullhorn or something that I could be telling people what to do. So I don't know. I don't think I would enjoy doing it nearly as much if I wasn't involved with the players.
Interesting. Coach, another question from the Nick Saban Show blog. Caleb in Milan, Georgia says, hey, Coach, thanks for continuing to maintain such a high standard for our program. Tell me, how do you get your offensive line to finish the play right through to the whistle? I notice we usually gain a good amount of yardage each game by simply pushing and pushing the pile. Roll Tide.
Well, you know, that's one of the things that we harp on our team and we're never really satisfied with is, and I actually talked about this one day after practice this week, is, you know, how do you finish the play? I mean, if you play the first 2/3 of the play, let's say the play lasts 6 seconds, so you play for 4 seconds and you don't finish the last 2, you know, that could be the difference. And there's in you know, a touchdown or your guy coming off and, you know, making a tackle or, you know, late into down or whatever. So that's the one thing that we're constantly harping on our players about is finishing the play. And I think that every opportunity that we get on the film, where we can show a guy who maybe he blocked the guy, but then at the last second he kind of let him slip off, and if it had just given a little more effort or finished, you know, a little more, the runner would have ran for a touchdown. And I think you constantly try to show players the consequence of what they did. If it's good, you want to show them that. But also if you have opportunities to show them things that would enhance their performance, enhance the team's performances, you want to show them that. And finishing plays is one of the big things that we're always working on with our players, both sides of the ball.
Well, obviously it works. You've got a lot of yardage after that first contact, and that does win you ball games. Coach, we're going to take one more break here and then come back to continue our conversation. Turned out to officially be a 100-yard return, but that's one of those speedy guys that Coach Saban was talking about. You know, one of those guys who can turn the light switch off and be in bed before the room gets dark. That's speed.
They've got a lot of those, and with the length that he has with that, he's a tremendous athlete.
He really is. You know, and it's amazing. You know, his brother Stephon Diggs, a graduate of the University of Maryland, went on to play and still is with the Minnesota Vikings. Another outstanding athlete. For them to come from the same family, it's just it's one of those blessings that they have.
Oh, 100%. And what I think people forget is when he was on the sideline last year, that defense sort of changed.
It did.
Him being back, accompanied with Terrell Lewis being close to 100% healthy, playing out there, making an impact. Those two guys have really made their presence felt.
And Terrell's leading the SEC in sacks now. Mm-hmm. Not that sacks is necessarily the end-all and be-all, but still, you'd rather have him on your side than not.
You talk about speed off the edge, his ability to affect the quarterback. It really has a ripple effect in terms of what the secondary looks at. He's a very big presence there, not to mention Jennings is another outside linebacker.
Yeah.
Just his force at that position, his leadership, and those young linebackers can sort of follow the lead a little bit with somebody like him.
Exactly. Glad you're with us tonight. The Nick Saban Show, presented by Alpha Insurance here at Baumhauer's Victory Grill. We opened up tonight with Christy Curry, the women's basketball coach. And don't forget, both the men and the women's teams, basketball teams, have exhibitions at Coleman Coliseum on Sunday. The men will be facing Georgia Tech. That one coming up at 12 noon. And then 30 minutes after that game wraps up, the ladies will be in action against Auburn Montgomery. A lot of folks looking forward to seeing what Coach Nate Oates and his basketball team will look like in their preseason opener against Georgia Tech. Coach, again, this hour has flown by, and we're closing in on the time for your final word. It's presented each week by Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing.
Well, I think the most important thing for players, fans, everyone that's associated with our organization, program, and who supports it is that you're 100% committed to this game. Mm-hmm. You know, this is the most important game that we're playing. Don't look at records. Don't look at what happened last week, because I think it's going to be really, really important that our team really, really plays well. You know, people are talking about Mac Jones and Tua not being playing and all that, but the people around him need to play well. And we need great support so that those players, you know, really feel that it's important for them to play, you know, well around him. And we're going to have to play really well on defense. And, you know, we have a lot of respect for Arkansas. You know, they scored 31 points against us last year. They got a tough scheme. They got a lot of crazy plays that they run that are tough to defend. And it's going to be really important that our players are on their toes and paying attention to detail in what they do. And, you know, the weather might not be great in the game, but no matter what happens, everybody's got to be 100% committed to this game. You know, let's worry about what happens next, but 100% committed to this game. It's the most important game, because if you're not, you give yourself a tremendous opportunity to get embarrassed.
What does John Chavis, as the defensive coordinator, bring to the table? I mean, here's a guy who's been around forever. You talk about the Mount Rushmore of defensive coordinators. He's on there. What does he bring with his defense?
Well, I mean, he's always been, you know, one of the premier defensive coordinators for probably the last
forever.
So ever since I've been in this league.
Yeah.
All right, he's always been in the league, whether it was, you know, at Tennessee or Texas A&M or, you know, now Arkansas. And, you know, these guys are really, really improved on defense. I think last year was his first year there, but he's really made a lot of progress with, you know, how fundamentally sound their players are. He's adapted the scheme a little bit, you know, to what you have to do to stop people, you know, in this day and age of football. And, still brings a lot of pressure and creates a lot of problems for you. So it's always challenging to play John Chavis coach defense.
It really is. Well, listen, have yourself a good evening. We'll catch up with you tomorrow and Saturday, and looking forward to a big game against Arkansas.
Well, thank you so much, and I want to thank the ladies again who got me the birthday cake. That was really sweet, and we appreciate it. And thank you so much.
Coach Nick Saban joining us here, and we've got another moment or so with Alex Scarborough, our special media guest from ESPN.com. Going into the ball game now, Alex, what do you do tomorrow? Do you start writing? Do you write prediction articles? Do you start writing analysis? What approach do you take from where we sit right now, right up until 6 o'clock on Saturday?
I think first and foremost, you let yourself decompress a little bit.
Yeah.
You come out of it. You get yourself mentally ready to go to a game. Because if you get too far up, I think it applies with players. You get too far up too early, it can drain you. But I'm really curious to see how this game goes and the level of focus and how that defense does. Nick talked about all the eye candy and how it can affect defensive players. Arkansas does that more than anybody.
And you still don't know at this hour, as we sit here, at least I don't think anything has been announced, whether Hicks or Starko will be the starting quarterback. So, again, if nothing else, it just gives you another guy to have to prepare for in the practice field.
And I'll certainly be keeping an eye on that, as I know the coaching staff will as well.
Listen, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it, and you've done so well after your time at the T News, so congratulations to you.
Thank you very much.
Alex Scarborough from ESPN, our special media guest.